Hi there, I'm up around episode 21 of this Starting Cocos3d playlist that I'm putting together. And the next couple of videos are going to be to do with lighting and lighting your Cocos3d scene. So I'm starting here with a blend file called lights.blend, and what I've done is I've put in a textured cube called textbox, and this has the colored front, back, up and down, left and right side texture on it. You can actually see it if I do that, but the only one with the texture on it. And into solid mode again. Along with that, I've got this red sphere, which I've called the UV mapped sphere, and even though it hasn't got any texture attached to it, what I have done is I've just gone into edit mode and unwrapped it so that it has coordinates for UV mapping, whereas this other sphere, when I go into edit mode, you can see that this does not have any coordinates for UV mapping, so this is just called the sphere. And along with all that, I've got this kind of container box, which is a cube, much the same as this, but I took out the front of it and went into edit mode with it, and then I selected all, and I've gone up here and flipped the direction of the normals, which means that when it comes into Cocos3d, the front faces are actually the inside faces and the back faces are the outside faces. This means that when we bring it into the program, I won't have to set the should call back faces to no property. It'll already run, and it'll save us doing that. And they have materials attached. This one is just a standard grey material. This one is, again, I think a grey material. There's no material, and this one has just a red material, and this guy has a green material. Okay. Also, I've done the UV unwrapping on the container cube, and if I look at that in UV image editor, you can see it there. It's just I've opened up the seams here so that it can attach a texture to it. Okay. I saved the Blender file as lights, and I exported it as a pod called lights pod, and I brought it into my Xcode project called Material World. And my new scene is called Ambient Light scene, and I've put all the what's necessary inside the main layer as I showed you in the previous videos, so that it'll come up in the menu. Okay, and in this Ambient Light scene, what I have is I've got mesh node member pointers to the cube, UV sphere, sphere and ground. I've got the control button action, and I've got a little float that I'm using to increment the lighting. Okay, and in the scene itself, I've got I'm just going to clock that out now, I've got no ambient light actually selected or set. The camera is in the usual place. The light is, I've done a few little things to the light, but at the moment the light is actually switched off, and that's down in the on open method. You see the lamp visible equals no. That's how you switch the light off. There's the res node bringing in the various objects, and I've got a few little methods that I'm going to be using as I go along. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just run it and show you what it looks like. And ambient light is the light that kind of bounces around in the corners. It's really kind of just some sort of shading light is what you'd call it. It's not direct light. So when you open it, the scene, and you haven't set anything, the light is switched off, you will actually see the objects appearing. You can see the text box rotating, and you can see the red sphere as well. You can't really make out the background, okay? And the reason for that is that the scenes by default have an ambient light setting of this one at the top, which is 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. It's kind of a dark grey. If you really want to make the scene completely black, you have to set the ambient light to 0000, and if I run it now, you'll see that you shouldn't be able to see anything at all when I open up the MC, and there you go, completely black. Okay, so what I've done inside in the project is I've got this increment float, which is set to 0 initially, and on the control button, when control button action increments that, and we're going to bring up the ambient light every click by just 0.1, and we'll see the effect that it has on the scene. So if I run it again, ambient light, it's completely black now, control button, and you can see the object starting to appear as the ambient light goes up, and at the moment it's up at 111. I have it been logged down here in a login file, and you can see what ambient light does is just give you a basic flat color to everything. So you can see that there's a background of green in the box, but you can't make out the box. You can see that there's there's a sphere, but it just looks like a circle, and the grey one is just like a circle. The fact that there's a texture on the text cube gives you some sense that there is depth on the cube, but that's about it. Okay, and that's what ambient light is. It doesn't have any specular, it doesn't have any sense of depth to it, but you can light scenes with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back, and this time I'm going to add textures onto everything. There's already a texture on the text cube, and I'm going to make the ambient light, actually we can leave it as dark for the moment. So down here I'm going to put on the textures, and all that does is put on the grass texture on the wall, box 1 texture on the UV sphere, and box 2 texture on the non-UV sphere, UV map sphere. So if we run this and have a look at it, you can see that with textures applied, bringing up the lights again, bringing up the lights, there you go, you can get some sense of depth on the 3D scene. You already can see the box. There is some sense of that's a sphere rather than just a circle, and you can see some sort of depth inside the box because of the way the mapping has gone on. Something you should also notice is that because I didn't have a UV mapping coordinate in the blend file for the grey sphere, it hasn't taken on the texture. So this is something to note. When you're doing texturing, you should always get it done inside in the Blender file, get it all mapped up and properly configured. But if you haven't, and you have something you want to bring in, if it has coordinates on it, you will be able to attach a texture to it, whereas if it doesn't, you won't be able to without an awful lot of work. So why do it that way? Okay, so that's the ambient scene with, and you can see the red coming through, the diffuse red coming through the texture in that one. So I'll just show you what you could do if you wanted to just light up a scene without any lights, is to go and set the ambient light to white. There we go. There it is. Ambient light is set to white now, and I have a thing here, a method here for just setting all the colors of the different objects in one go. Set object ambient color. It's going to set it to white, and it's down here, and all it does is make the cube, UV sphere, and sphere equal to white. Okay, and I should have done it for the other thing anyway, but it doesn't matter. And you can see now in the ambient scene, yeah, that doesn't work out too well. I should have put it on the backlight. I'll just do that there quickly. So, what's it called? The ground. Yeah, that ambient color equals color. And run it again. So there you go. If you wanted to just have a kind of a flat scene, that kind of a cartoony scene as a background or something like that, you can see that just with ambient light you can light up everything. Once the material at the back of the texture is white and the texture is put on it, you will get some sense of depth to the screen. Okay. Basically, what I think you should do is put together something like this and start fiddling around with the different parameters. If you change the color of the light, let's say we put that to blue, you'll get a blue effect on it. There we go. I just turned it off again, but you can see initially that it was actually, if I just do it again, there you go. You can see now you've got blue ambient light, so you can mess around with this thing and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things with it. Okay. Have I done everything I want to do? I'll go back to set that to white. Ambient light. And the other thing I want to do is I put on the textures. I want to just show you, if you press the button and take off all the textures. So in the control button action, I'll do that. And this time now, when I start pressing the control button action, the textures will all come off. and you'll be back to absolutely nothing. You can't, because everything is the same color now with the ambience, you just can't make out anything. So you really need textures to give you some sense of an ambience when you're using ambient light only. Okay. The last thing I want to say about ambient light is that if I turn on the lamp now, actually I should have done that just to show you what it looks like. Yes, and I'll just show you what I've done to the lamp up here. The lamp is added. If you take off the diffuse color, take off the specular color, and just set the ambient color of the lamp to white, and I'll take off the ambient, I'll set the self ambient light to completely dark. If you run it now, ambient scene, you can see that there's no light coming from the scene itself, but this ambient light is now coming from the lamp that's been attached to the scene. So all lamps, not only do they have the ability to shine, they have a diffuse element to them as well. It's the standard default value is set to 0, but you can mess around with that as well, and you can light up a scene with ambient light using a lamp. Okay. What I recommend you do is put something like this together and just start fiddling around with it, throw in different values, and you'll get a good handle on what ambient lighting is in Cocos3d.